Good morning. Welcome to White River Energy Corp's Share Series Monday Management Update Call. I'm Mark Silverberg, Partner and Head of Energy, Sustainability, and Modern Mobility at ICR. Before we get started on the discussion with White River today, I'll begin quickly with a few legal disclaimers on behalf of the company. Please note that the company's remarks made during this call, including answers to questions, include forward-looking statements which are subject to various risks and uncertainties. These include statements relating to our entrance into the oil and gas drilling industry through our acquisition of White River Holdings Corp, the expected results from and trends and developments in our oil drilling and production efforts and related activities, future plans for and anticipated transactions and relationships with respect to our oil and gas portfolio and operations, anticipated macro trends in the oil and gas industry, the planned spinoff by EcoArc Holdings, Inc. of our common stock issuable upon conversion of its preferred stock, our plan and ability to uplist to a national security exchange, and our liquidity and capital raising strategies to fund our growth initiatives. Actual results may differ materially from results predicted, and reported results should not be considered as an indication of future performance. A discussion of risks and uncertainties related to the company's business, which recently changed to focus to an oil and gas drilling and production company, following the July 2022 acquisition of White River Holdings Corp. From EcoArc Holdings, Inc., is contained or referenced in the company's filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, including its quarterly report on Form 10-Q for the quarter ended June 30, 2022, filed on August 12, 2022, and its quarterly report on Form 10-Q for the quarter ended September 30th, 2022, to be filed this afternoon. The company disclaims any obligation to update any forward-looking statement as a result of future developments. So, with that aside, let's get into it. I'm pleased to be joined here today with Randy May, Executive Chairman of White River, and Jay Puchir, CEO of White River.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's start at the very top. And Randy, maybe over to you. Can you tell listeners about the White River business? In essence, what is the 60-second overview of the company and what it is that you do?
Sure, Mark. Thank you. White River's primarily a integrated upstream energy corporate company, vertically integrated, and we primarily operate about 30,000 acres in Mississippi and Louisiana. We have our own land department, geology. We have our own engineering, production, and completion. We really take it from the permit about 70% through, with the exception of two services that we outsource, and that's cement and wireline, which we don't want to get into wireline for the liability, but it's a hub and spoke model. And we have had assets outside of Louisiana and Mississippi in the past, but we divested from Texas and primarily focused in Louisiana and Mississippi.
Excellent. Looking forward to digging into each of those aspects a bit more in our conversation, but maybe, Randy and JP, you both have very impressive backgrounds in building and leading both public and private businesses across a range of industries. And so can you tell us a bit, about your career path up until this point today? And maybe let's start with you, Randy, and then we'll turn it over to JP.
Sure. Primarily, my background's been in operations and also in the capital markets. I spent a disproportionate amount of my career at Walmart during their hyper-growth years. I ran half the U.S. in operations. And then in 2011, I was a founder of EcoArc, Inc., and later took it to the OTC in 2016, and then uplisted the holding company to NASDAQ in 2021. And I've been across several sectors, scaling in manufacturing, transportation, and obviously have invested in the energy sector over the last 20 years.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Yourself, JP?
Sure. My background is in finance and accounting, mergers and acquisitions. I'm a licensed CPA. I spent my first 10 years of my career in the Big Four. I was an auditor at PwC and a consultant at Ernst & Young. And I've completed numerous capital transactions, capital raises, mergers and acquisitions, divestitures, and was a lead executive on our prior company, which on the effort to uplist it from OTC to NASDAQ.
Perfect. Appreciate that, guys. Look, those are, as I said, impressive backgrounds and experience sets, but needless to say, there's more to White River than just the two of you, JP and Randy. And so can you briefly share more about other key members of the White River team?
Sure. Stanley King has got over 40 years experience as a geologist, and he primarily works in the Mississippi and Louisiana area. We're fortunate to have Stanley relationship with him over the years, and he's done a great job helping us with our assets. Jack Corona is our petroleum engineer. He's got over 20 plus years experience. Larry Parker is our drilling superintendent, and Larry's got 20 plus years experience at multiple depths in operations on both the production and the drilling side. And then Jimmy Lawson is our land department. He manages our land man, and he's got over 30 years experience as well. And obviously JP has a team with from the accounting side and finance. Jay?
Yeah, we also have Elisa Horgan, who's our chief administrative officer. She's actually the lead executive who took our company from OTC markets up to OTCQB last week. So she's hitting the ground running. We've also got Michael Pollock, who's the principal accounting officer. He's a former audit partner at KBL LLP. So he's got just years and years of experience on the financial reporting side.
Great. Thanks, guys. Maybe let's widen it out from the people to the company and its branding. While the energy assets owned and operated by White River are not new, the White River name is. And so can you expand a bit on the recent rebranding that you completed for the creation of White River and why you underwent that change?
Sure, I'll take that. In 2019, White River was acquiring leases, and primarily that time frame was lease saving operations. They acquired leases through some various acquisition, and then White River was acquired in 2020 by EcoArc. And what we recognize is that the energy assets we felt were better served to spin out onto its own, and so we acquired first about 9,000 acres and over 30,000. And that's what we're currently operating. We felt it was a better value for shareholders and to exploit the opportunity on its own. And that's when we decided to spin out to the OTC. And then obviously recently we moved up to the OTCQB. So.
Yeah, and in 2020, when oil futures went negative, we were about the only people in the country that were bullish on oil at that point. We went on an acquisition spree, did a number of transactions, one of which was acquiring all of the Louisiana and Mississippi assets of Sanchez Energy, the former public company out of bankruptcy. So that's, and as Randy mentioned, the 30,000 acres we have includes both shallow and deep rights. For a smaller player that was starting off in 2019, it was pretty impressive to get the deep rights too.
Perfect. Yeah, I remember those days of negative $65 oil, JP, and the conversations that you and I had around that. Some of our listeners be familiar with White River's affiliation to parent company EcoArc, a holding company that's listed on NASDAQ under ticker symbol ZEST, Zest. For those that aren't, can you maybe expand a bit on how White River fits into the broader EcoArc umbrella?
Sure. White River was spun out of EcoArc in July of 2022. EcoArc shareholders of record on September 30th will get a future stock dividend of White River stock in exchange for that transaction. But as of right now, EcoArc has no control over White River. The preferred stock it has is non-voting. So as of right now, White River is its own standalone public company.
Perfect. Thanks, JP. Let's maybe turn a bit to the assets and the industry. Can you share, Randy, a bit with listeners about what attracted you to purchasing your first upstream oil and gas assets several years ago?
Yeah, so I've been investing in oil and gas for more than 20 years, and I would say there's several different ways that you can be exposed to making money. And then there's several different ways that there's the hidden fees, hidden cost. And what I learned over the years is that the best way to control cost and to absolutely build a consistent model of return is controlling the asset, from the operations to the lease to the rig operations. As far up the stream as you can get is the best model for controlling your expenses. And so that's what we do. We at White River, we absolutely, anything that we currently are doing is assets that we control. We control the leases, we control the hub and spoke model that I mentioned is strategic around a 500-mile radius of our yard. So we really use a lot of our own assets to work in those areas.
Great. For those that follow the story, you're probably familiar with that, with your recent announcement on the completion of a drilling project in Holmes County, Mississippi. And for those that may not be familiar with the geography, Holmes County is located in the west central portion of the state. And it includes a portion of the Water Smackover Formation, which is a geologic formation that extends all the way from Florida over to Texas. Can you expand more about your partnership with Alt Energy and specifically your joint drilling plans over the next 5 years, JP?
Yeah, sure. So we've got a great relationship with Todd Alt, the executive chairman of BitNile, and Will Horn, the CEO of BitNile. They recently announced publicly that Alt Energy, their subsidiary, is looking to drill 100 wells over the next 5 years in partnership with White River. As you mentioned, the very first project that they participated in was the Harry O'Neill 20-9. It's always good to start off a partnership with your partner and hit oil for them, and we did that. And we expect to continue to move forward with them and drill the rest of the 99 wells over these 5 years. So every well we drill, we give them a right to participate, and just looking forward to continuing the partnership.
And Randy, can you expand a bit on your views on the oil and gas market in the Louisiana, Mississippi market? Maybe if you could dive a bit into why you're positioned there and maybe its strategic advantages versus other U.S. basins.
Yeah, what we looked at this for years, and it's not just my opinion. I think it's our geologists and engineers' opinion that Mississippi and Louisiana has some of the most underdeveloped fields in the oil and gas space in the United States. The fact that we are about a 5-hour radius from our yard also allows us to scale nice in the area. We also have very good control, understanding of the formations we're at and what product we're going to get and produce out of those formations. And if you look at it, a lot of our oil is a premium to the West Texas price index. And in some cases, we get more than $6 a barrel. And the other piece is that we feel like if we stay in that area, we can kind of be the big fish in a small pond. And we don't compete in West Texas with the super majors and get caught up in that overhead, which also helps us with our cost per barrel.
Appreciate that. In monitoring some of the questions coming in, it seems like folks are interested in growth. And so if we turn a bit more towards financial strategy, JP, can you expand on what your strategy for growth is at White River? What would you call out, to the audience on how White River will expand over time?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We've put together a business model for this company that we think is very unique. I don't know if there's any other mid-size energy companies that are doing what we're doing right now. So we recently formed a $200 million oil and gas drilling fund. That's expected to be the main source of capital for our drilling projects going forward. In exchange for drilling wells for that fund, White River will receive a 25% promoted working interest. So that would benefit our shareholders on that. And this is really a non-dilutive way for us to bring capital into the company. Don't have to issue any additional shares of common stock for using the limited partnership. And it'll be a great source of growth for us. We're actually looking at doing one of these funds every year for the next 10 years at a minimum. We also plan to acquire a broker dealer in the next 6 months, and that'll be used as a wholly owned subsidiary of this energy company to help place additional capital into these limited partnerships.
Great, that's helpful. Randy, maybe back to you. The commodity markets have been extremely dynamic over the last few years. As JP was mentioning before, at the height of the COVID pandemic, many recall oil prices were negative $65, and today both oil and gas are near their recent cycle highs. And so can you expand on how you see the energy markets and some of the critical factors driving it over the next few months and few years?
So, one of the things that we're positioned, we feel very comfortable with is only about 2% of our 30,000 acres are on federal land. So the majority of our leases, we don't see any issue in terms of delay in permitting. In Louisiana, Mississippi, they're pro oil and gas. And I think that the key for any oil company, small oil company going forward, in my opinion, is how do you keep the cost down in your operation? And our cost of production is about $32 a barrel. And the way I see it is that, you're going to have demand going forward in the near term. And long term, it's going to get tougher and tougher to drill on federal land in our estimation. And so we feel very comfortable that our cost structure in that Louisiana, Mississippi area, that we can keep our cost in line. And I don't see oil pricing going down to $32 anytime soon. So we should have a reasonable margin in our estimation.
Great, thanks, Randy. Maybe to stick into that theme on commodity prices, JP, what type of commodity exposure do you have in the business? Specifically, do you hedge out any of that risk, and any general comments on maybe the regional dynamics and markets for the commodities that you do produce?
Sure. We're not currently hedging oil prices, but based on our drilling plan, we have a number of horizontal directional drills coming up over the next year to year and a half. I foresee us, as we start to hit those oil wells, as if oil starts to go over $100 a barrel again, like we expect it to do at some point in the future, we'll probably put a hedge on at that point.
Perfect. Maybe a bit back more to the operations of the business. And so can you tell the audience, Randy, a bit more about who you partner with from a services perspective, including obviously those that specialize in D&C, the drilling and completion of oil and gas wells?
Yeah, sure. Even though we're 70% vertically integrated, we partner with Fortune 500 company to log our wells for data, perforate our wells. Obviously, that's one area we don't anticipate getting into anytime soon. But the quality of the data after we drill the well is imperative, and so we do partner with the Fortune 500 company.
Helpful, thank you. Just looking at some of the questions, I think maybe JP, this one would be for you. Back on the capital markets side, for those that aren't familiar with the EcoArc track record, you've been successful in uplisting companies from OTC to national exchanges such as the NASDAQ in the past. And so can you expand on what that uplist does for companies, that greater platform, and maybe any similar potential aspirations that you may have with White River?
Yeah, sure. I mean, after going through a successful uplist already, as you mentioned, from taking our last company, EcoArc, from OTC to up to NASDAQ, the one thing we can say is we never put out predictions on when it's going to happen. It's a lot of that's in the hands of the regulators. I can say that immediately upon getting White River up to OTCQB, we did start that exact same process that we went through on our last company, and we're going through the steps right now of applying to a national exchange, and hope to uplist in a very short time frame. In terms of the platform, it just further validates the company. Even going from OTC Pink up to OTCQB validates the company's operations, the financial reporting, and everything else. And then getting up to a national exchange will get us more eyes on the stock, more volume, and eventually just be part of our growth plan. So we're not worried about it. We expect it to happen in a very short order, and are working through the steps right now.
Thanks, JP. Randy, back to you. You've previously disclosed some of the results from wells that you have drilled. We're getting some questions from the audience as well. Can you tell the audience a bit more on the production levels that you've seen from some of the wells you've drilled to date?
Sure. In 2021, we drilled a deep horizontal Austin Chalk well. The initial production came on at north of 1,000 barrels a day, and over time depleted to just under 100 barrels a day. Then we went back in the last year and did a workover procedure and added artificial lift, and which increased the production over 500%. And then we just recently completed a 9,500 foot well in the Smackover Formation in Holmes County, Mississippi. That's productive. That's actually come online in the last few days, and we're very, very pleased with what we're seeing in the oil cut. And we'll be reporting on the initial production on that in the coming weeks. And then just Friday, we spudded a well in Concordia Parish, 14,000 foot vertical well. We're actually going through, we believe, 8 pay sands. And it's important to note, Mark, that these are proven fields. These are not wildcat. And so we use well control, we use seismic, we use various data to go through and further develop these fields. And so we spudded that well on Friday, and I believe that we'll be reporting on that towards the end of this month. But we're very excited to go down. And I didn't mention before, but we also control all depths in the 30,000 acres. In a lot of cases, you get in some of these mature fields, you don't control the depths, and we control all depths at the 30,000 acres, shallow and deep right. So that's also, we feel very comfortable in being able to exploit that value.
Excellent. Well, look, I think I'm monitoring some of the inflow here. I think we've hit on all the questions. Very helpful conversation. Maybe before we end things, Randy, JP, any final comments that you guys had? Or
I would just say White River's only been a standalone public company since July. We've already made a lot of progress, and just watch out. The next 12 months, there's going to be a lot of growth, in our opinion, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah, I believe the timing. I would just say that the timing from the energy sector is really, we feel very good positioned for a small company over the next coming years.
Perfect. Well, both on behalf of Share and everyone listening, we do appreciate the time and everyone on the line for joining us today. For additional information, I would direct everyone to ticker symbol WTRV, White River, which, as JP mentioned, trades on OTCQB as of last week, as well as the company's website at white-river.com, www.white-river.com. And so with that, I think we're right on time here. So thanks so much for joining, Randy, JP. Appreciate the conversation. and everyone have a great day.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.